We've discussed how display referred color management works in Resolve. We've seen how that functions with the various tabs, including the Media tab, Timeline tab, Color tab, and Deliver tab. However, we haven't discussed how it works with the Fusion tab, and Fusion is a new addition to Resolve, so that works a bit differently. I've gone back and opened up the Alexa display referred project included with the project files, and once again this has a single Alexa clip. Right now there's no LUT applied to it. If I go back to project settings, we can confirm that indeed we're working with the display referred system with the default timeline color space. If I go back to the color tab, we can see once again we have two versions of this clip. Each one has a different LUT applied and a different color grading. So how does that all work with Fusion? We'll take a look at this and then go to the Fusion tab. You'll see it's quite different. There's no color grading and no LUT. The thing to remember is Fusion goes back to the Media tab and uses the clip as is. So wherever you see in the Media tab in the view, that's what you get in the Fusion tab, at least initially. In fact, Fusion also uses the original resolution of the clip. You can see the resolution if you middle mouse drag here in the view. You can see the resolution right here. So this is a HD resolution clip. That said, if you're using a clip with a larger resolution, such as 3 or 4K, Fusion would pull that 3 or 4K clip in here to create the visual effects. Now if the timeline is a smaller resolution, such as HD, the timeline actually downscales whatever it gets out of Fusion to fit the timeline. So it's nice to be able to work with the original resolution, but be assured that it'll still fit the timeline. You can see the timeline resolution by going back to the project settings. And here in the master settings, there's a timeline resolution. So the scaling happens automatically. In fact, if you go to the image scaling section, you can see that if there is a mismatch in resolutions, the timeline scales the entire image to fit. Now in terms of color transforms, you can apply LUTs inside Fusion. There's a couple ways to do that, but the first is to use the View LUTs up here at the top. There's a button here that looks like a grid called LUT. If it's dark gray, it's off. If you click it so it turns white, it's on. And that applies a LUT to the view. The LUT does not affect the calculations of the network down here. It's only for the view. And each view has one of those buttons. Now initially when that LUT button is activated, nothing changes. You can see what LUT's applied though if you go to the little arrow menu right beside the LUT button. There's a long list. By default though, you get the Fusion View LUT. Now if you want to see what that's doing, you can actually edit whatever LUT is selected. Go down to the Edit option. And here's the Fusion View LUT. Based on its default settings, nothing actually changes. It has the linear contrast curve, zero gain, and gammas of 1. However, you are free to change these to alter the view. You can also choose a different LUT. For example, let's say I want to choose a film look LUT that emulates a particular motion picture film stock. If you do choose a new LUT and the view doesn't change, toggle off and on the LUT button. Click it so it's definitely off, then click it so it's definitely back on. And then you'll see the update for that new LUT. Again, the LUT does not affect the calculations down here in the network. If you don't want to use any LUT, simply turn it off. Now, if you're missing a LUT, you can always add your own LUTs to the Resolve system, and we'll demonstrate how to do that later on. It's also possible to apply a color space transform by using the fourth option in this menu, which is Managed. And this option is similar to applying a gamut tool. We'll demonstrate the Managed option and the gamut tool in a later video. You may also notice that there are several OCIO options here, and those offer an additional way to apply a custom color space transform. We'll demonstrate an OCIO tool in a later video also. Because Fusion is relatively new, the LUT button is a bit buggy. So be careful not to select a LUT more than one time, or you might have multiple LUTs applied to your view. So just be very careful with that. Just as a test, let's go ahead and add a tool to our network to see how it's passed to the other tabs. For example, let's add a blur. I'll right mouse button click on the pipe to the right of Media N. Go to Add Tool to see our tool list. There's the blur category of tools, and we'll apply, let's say, the focus. That's inserted into the network automatically. Over at the right are the parameters for that tool. I'll go ahead and increase the focus size so we can really see that blur. And there we go. Let's go back to the timeline. In the timeline, you'll see the result of Fusion and the Color tab. So you get the blurred, color graded result. Let's go back to the Color tab. There you see, once again, the result of the Fusion tab and the color grading and the LUT application of the Color tab. And the Deliver tab gets the same thing. In terms of the order of events on a more technical level, when footage is imported, the input color space transform is applied to it, and this is through either a LUT or a raw interpretation, or through a managed color system like RCM. The footage is then passed to the Fusion tab, where the program converts it to a linear color space. This is ideal for visual effects work. It's then passed to the timeline, where it's transformed back into the timeline color space, and this is a space where you grade by default. Eventually, it's passed to the output color space for the final render. So it can be a little bit confusing on the order of events here, but just remember that Fusion goes back and gets the original footage as it appears in the Media tab. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to the next type of color management, and we'll start that in the next video.